right, good morning, everyone. It's great to be here at the conference during such an uneventful time in Washington. I'm here to hopefully bring a little more clarity to the chaos and talk about a product called the Canvass that we've produced now with Punchbowl News for the past several years. For those unfamiliar, what is the Canvass? It is a survey of the most senior staffers and senior leaders on Capitol Hill and K Street on the true issues driving Washington. What makes this so unique? First, it's never been done before. We all know there are countless voter polls out there that are helpful around election time, but as far as understanding what will and will not move in Congress, there really isn't anything that looks at that in a serious way. Second, the quality of the sample. It's the highest quality sample of its kind. The highest rate of participation in our Capitol Hill survey is among chiefs of staff. The highest rate of participation in our K Street survey is of folks with the title President, CEO, or partner. So we're talking about the folks who truly drive and inform decision-making in Washington. And finally, it's anonymous and actionable in the insights it derives. Punchbowl was a great partner for us, given that Punchbowl is nonpartisan. My firm, LSG, is bipartisan, and it's engendered a ton of trust in our respondents that there's no hidden agenda here and that we maintain their anonymity by conducting this online. And the insights that it's derived have been actionable and incredibly predictive. And so what I want to start by talking through is sort of the journey that we've been on with the Canvass from 2021 when we started to the present in terms of just how predictive this has been in what moves on the Hill. And we recently, in just the last few days, conducted some polling to look at what we should expect from this administration and the Republican Congress in the year ahead. So starting back in 2021, the mainstream media narrative was that this divided Congress would be unproductive, that an infrastructure bill had no chance of making it through Congress. What we saw in the Canvass in the 12 months leading up to the passage of the bipartisan infrastructure law was that infrastructure was always going to pass with bipartisan support. And you see in that screenshot there, CNBC actually covered our poll as it was the only one bucking the trend that folks were seeing in the mainstream media, and that's really what put the Canvass on the map. Fast forward to 2022, the Canvass was accurate in predicting the changing of the guard that we saw on Capitol Hill, with Pelosi stepping down, Jeffries succeeding her. In terms of key legislative predictions that were accurate, that the CHIPS and Science Act will pass, that elements of Biden's failed Build Back Better program would pass in the IRA, namely clean energy tax credits, Medicare price negotiation, and enhanced premium tax credits. And what has been most remarkable with the Canvass has been around congressional elections in the midterms. In 2022, the Canvass accurately predicted 9 of the 9 most competitive Senate races nationwide, and we've seen this trend in even recent midterms when we go forward to 2024. Looking at 2023, a year of Republican tumult on the Hill and Democratic inaction, the Canvass was accurate in projecting that McCarthy would not last as Speaker and that Johnson would replace him. Legislatively, the Canvass was accurate in projecting that this Congress would be ineffective at passing meaningful legislation. However, it would be effective at getting things done when it counted most, namely raising the debt ceiling. That was never in doubt with this panel. And that Democrats will be vulnerable in economic policy in the midterms, and we saw that bear out in 2024. So fast forward to 2024, from a leadership perspective, accurate in predicting that McConnell will be succeeded by Thune and that Johnson will persist and last as Speaker. On legislation, that funding will pass for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. There was a mainstream media narrative that support had waned for Ukraine and was going to stop, and that was obviously not the case. And again, in the midterm elections, 8 of the 10 most competitive Senate races, our respondents were accurate in predicting the outcome. So what do we see in the present? From the latest polling that we've conducted, there's 3 key themes that I want to hit on. Number 1, to expect a much more productive Congress in this one than the last one. 72% of our respondents believe that's the case. However, the parties are split on whether they believe Trump has a mandate. You have a majority of Republicans in our survey who say he does, and a majority of Democrats who say he does not. I guess winning every swing state is not enough to constitute a mandate, and we'll see some other data that I think suggests otherwise. Control. 93% of Canvass respondents say that President Trump will control the agenda in terms of policy on the Hill even more than congressional Republican leadership. And finally, concern. A plurality of Republicans, meaning more who say so than not, are actually concerned about the impact of certain Trump policies, namely tariffs, DOGE, and cuts. So we asked respondents shortly after the election what the most important priorities are for this administration. And given that Trump solved for world peace in day one, what remains on the table is immigration, trade and tariffs, and taxes. And we've seen these bear out as his sort of three key pillars, especially what he focused a lot on in his address to Congress. Next, we asked, and this is just in the days leading up to this conference, what is and is not most likely to pass this year? You'll see at the top there, 90+% of respondents say raising the debt ceiling and a reconciliation package that addresses the 2017 Trump tax cuts will pass. 78% say a government funding bill. You'll see at the very bottom there what is least likely to make it through this Congress: repeal of the IRA and extension of the enhanced premium tax credits. Most likely federal budget cuts. You'll see here that over 60% of respondents say that it is likely that Pell Grants, SNAP, Medicaid, and clean energy tax credits will be cut and on the chopping block. What is off the chopping block is Medicare, only 27% thinking that it is at all likely Medicare gets cut. A shutdown looms large. There is a lot of pessimism among our panel in terms of whether the government will shut down, with 75% saying it is likely it will shut down, and among Republicans, 60% believing that is likely the case. Tariffs and DOGE, I mentioned, are a source of concern, and it's bipartisan concern. When you look at that chart there on the left, 87% of Republican leaders say that they're concerned about the impacts of tariffs as much or more as Democrats. On DOGE, in the chart on the right, 72% of Republicans say they are concerned, and 93% of Democrats saying the same. The political impact of executive orders. Trump has obviously come out with a flurry of executive orders, and we've looked at what folks expect will help and harm Republicans in the midterms. You'll see the list on the left. There are ones that folks think will help the Republican Party in the midterms, and that's immigration enforcement, transgender participation in sports, energy, DEI, and gender-affirming care. A much longer list of what will help than will harm. On the right, in terms of what they're concerned will harm the party, tariffs and DOGE, again, a consistent theme that we see throughout. The political impact of federal budget cuts. The two cuts that a majority believe will be harmful to Republicans in the midterm, Medicaid and SNAP, are really the biggest causes for concern. Finally, looking at foreign policy. Most believe that Trump's posture toward China and the Israel-Hamas conflict will be helpful to Republicans in the midterm. However, a majority believe his posture toward Canada and the Russian-Ukraine war will be harmful. So I know I've walked through a lot. I want to just wrap with some key takeaways that I hope folks leave here with. Number one, Trump and the Republican Party are more popular than many think. I say this because if you look at data, the Democratic Party has never been less popular in the past 15 years than it is right now, and the Republican Party has never been more popular. And I think that that is exactly what indicates the mandate that the administration is operating with in terms of policy. Second, expect a more effective second term and a more productive Congress. We're seeing with the rate at which things are moving in Washington that already he's off to a more productive start than in his first term. Third, while Trump's policy priorities are popular, implementation of them is cause for concern. We see this around tariffs, we see the same around DOGE, and so I would be looking out for what the response is from congressional Republicans as folks, Americans start to feel the impacts of some of these policies. Fourth, governing with the MAGA coalition will present challenges. I mentioned that all indications are Trump has a mandate, but what the unique predicament he's in is this incredibly unique and diverse coalition he's built. MAGA. This is 2 in 5 Republican voters identify as MAGA, 1 in 3 swing or independent voters identify as MAGA. These are voters who are further than establishment Republicans on immigration, yet closer to Democrats on economic issues. And so balancing for delivering on what his winning coalition wants with what establishment Republicans want and expect on the Hill will be challenging in terms of governing. And finally, look out for the Republican Congress and corporate industry response to Trump's economic agenda, as well as the evolution of the Democratic Party. How vocal congressional Republicans are, as well as corporate industry, as the impacts of tariffs, DOGE, and other things are felt, will very much dictate how far he's able to go, how much runway there is on some of these issues that we know are cause for concern. And the Democratic Party, as of now, there has not quite been a cohesive message or unified leader in opposition to the administration's agenda. And so I'd be looking for who emerges in that role, and if the messaging strikes the right note, that there is meaningful resistance on some of these policies. So we're out of time. My information is there. If folks have any questions, I'll also be around, so I hope to chat with many of you. But thank you very much.